Hello, thanks for attending our La Plata Democrats Club Zoom meeting. The goal of the club is to bring together all Democrats from the most conservative to the most progressive to celebrate our shared values, appreciate who we are, and to work together to put more Democrats in office. I'd like to acknowledge our club luncheon sponsor, Albrecht and Albrecht Law Firm. They've been supporting us for several years now, so if you need legal help, think about Albrecht and Albrecht. Today, we're going to hear from Harrison Wendt about the Colorado statewide program called the Green Wave. And I'll introduce him more in a minute. The stuff I put in the chat has a couple bullet points, and this is about a job opportunity to join Harrison and get paid for being a campus organizer. So if you want to start copying and pasting that or reading it to share with everybody you know, that'd be good. Everybody's asked to stay muted except for the speaker and myself. Actually, that'd be Harrison, me, and then Ann may be helping with questions. If you want to submit a question different from the ones we're asking during this Zoom, please use the chat feature. Don't unmute yourself and speak until we say so. I think there'll be a point at which Harrison invites you to speak. Send your questions to everyone in the chat window. So if you're having trouble with internet connectivity, you may want to disable your video. Audio only works better on slower connections. Zoom meeting's being recorded and it'll be available within a day or so for viewing on our YouTube channel. And I'll put that in the chat in a minute. You can choose speaker mode in the upper right corner of your screen, which will bring up a larger video of the person speaking. I'd like to encourage everyone to donate to the La Plata Dems in this year. It keeps our office rented and we can get funds ahead of need. Monthly donations are particularly appreciated and you can set those up on ActBlue. This is our 9th meeting for this year. Next month, we're going to discuss the ballot issues, and I've heard there are 7, so it may be the only topic of our next month, but we'll see how it goes. The club committee is working to bring great programs for you in the future. If anyone has announcements to make, please enter something in the chat window and we'll recognize you at the end of the session. So now I'll introduce Harrison Wendt, which many of you on the call probably already know. I'm pleased to introduce Harrison Wendt, the leader of our Green Wave project here at Fort Lewis College and throughout the state. Harrison brings a wealth of experience in campaign management, including city council campaigns, school boards, statewide, and most recently with Vivian Smotherman, our candidate for Colorado Senate District 6. He's committed to promoting civic engagement and empowering the next generation of voters. Under Harrison's guidance, the Green Wave Project aims to amplify student voices and boost electoral participation both on campus and throughout our community. Let's welcome Harrison and join him in making a meaningful impact.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you everyone for showing up today. I appreciate it, and engaging in conversation about how we can include younger folks in our political process. I'm going to share a presentation with you, and I'm kind of going to do 2 parts of this. Just share a little bit about what the Green Wave Project is, and then I would love to open up discussion about, especially if there's folks on here who are eager or excited or willing to start talking to young folks on campus or off campus, to kind of have discussions about the best ways that we can engage in those conversations and how we can talk to folks, especially younger folks. Because I know that younger folks can sometimes be really, really turned off by the political process. And so there's a specific way to talk to them, to engage them and make them feel heard and valued. Let me go ahead and share this PowerPoint. Is it sharing?
I see your whole screen.
Okay.
So.
Not anymore though, right?
Yeah, now it's on the slide.
Okay. That was all the way in the back. Let me go.
I was going to say, okay, that was a nice presentation.
So the Green Wave Project, it's a project by the Colorado Democratic Party to engage and bring our young voters, bring out young voters to policy. Social and climate policies are what drive young voters, and let's use that. Particularly, we'll be talking about Fort Lewis College. We are working on, we're working throughout the entire state doing voter contact, but we're going to have people on each campus at Fort Lewis, Pueblo, UNC Greeley. We'll have some volunteers in Boulder. And then there's one more, Mesa University in Grand Junction. Just looking at Fort Lewis College and the demographics, I think this is particularly important to highlight in terms of what we're doing here, because it's no surprise that people from marginalized communities feel continuously left out of political processes, and so highlighting what Fort Lewis has and what their demographics are. So Fort Lewis is 54% students of color, 113 tribes and Alaska Native villages represented, 44% first-generation students. And then this one is kind of off topic on demographics, but you'll see why it's important later. It's 58% reduction in campus carbon emissions. So what is the Green Wave Project? In the 2024 elections, our focus is on electing climate-conscious leaders across all levels of government in Colorado, pivotal in both the local and national political landscape. This initiative supports major climate actions, such as those promoted by President Biden's Infrastructure Reduction Act, which is something that we would and will be highlighting a lot when we're on college campuses. Is even though President Biden is not running for re-election, his track record for climate initiatives and climate bills has been incredible, and we need to highlight that with the young people to help build trust between our president and young people. And then also in the same breath, by advocating for Biden, we'd be advocating for Kamala's administration too. Our Colorado Green Wave organizers, will be the Colorado Democratic Party's on-the-ground messengers for young voters who have so much on the line in this election. And we'll use a variety of tactics to recruit volunteers and mobilize college and young communities across Colorado. Let me see. I had notes somewhere and I need to get them up, but since I shared my screen, they disappeared. Sorry.
What a beautiful campus.
Oh, it really is. We're so lucky. It's what drove me to come here. All right. So our messaging and how we want to connect with young folks. Our core message is to emphasize Colorado's crucial role in pivotal elections and advocating for aggressive climate policies. Engagement, encourage involvement by emphasizing the direct impact of these elections on future climate policies and local environments. Unfortunately, in our world and with young folks, and this is what I've been seeing for the last few years, is that young people are not voting based on the candidate. They are voting based on what sort of policy that candidate is putting forward. So all of us here probably think we have one of the best candidates in Kamala Harris, and I really do believe that. Unfortunately, a lot of young people don't feel that same way. And so it's our job to have that conversation with these young folks where we're understanding that they're not on the same level as we are in terms of excitement and we have to draw clear lines and clear differences between our parties, whether it's the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and what we are doing to advance climate legislation, and what Republicans are doing to roll back climate legislation. And when we have those conversations with young folks, I think they start to click in their head that this is not about whether we like a candidate or not. This is about what policy is most important, and how we want our future to go. I'll just talk about La Plata, and this is kind of our goal on how we want to reach out to these folks, and I'll get to the how later. But Fort Lewis has, I think it's a little under like 4,000 students, and our universe size, the people that we want to reach, the young folks that we want to reach, is about 3,500, which is about 3,400 doors. It could be more like 3,600. There's a good chunk of people that we won't want to talk to because we have voting history on them. We can never see who people vote for, but we know which way they might go. And there's no point in wasting our time talking to some folks. So we want to make sure that we're encouraging young folks who are Democratic to turn out, because so often they don't. So we have pretty ambitious goals. It's actually not 10 weeks anymore. It's 9 weeks, which made me really freaked out this morning when I realized that, when I went through this. So we have 340 doors a week that we want to at least try to knock, for young college students. And these are pretty crucial. I'll tell you that, in my opinion, and it might differ a little bit from people at the state party, but I don't know how effective knocking on doors are going to be for young people. I feel like in some ways it could be the same as phone calls. I'm not opposed to trying, and I want to do it. But I think that young folks are a lot more engaged when you're showing up where they're at, text messaging, social media. And so we have a pretty significant budget that we'll be working with to engage these people through texting, through social media, and through tabling on campus. And we'll go to that. How we win. So we'll knock on doors, which is the tried and true classic campaigning. Dorm storms are a new thing that was introduced to me, and I loved it. So you get a group of people. You have to communicate with someone in the dorm or someone on the college beforehand. So because all the dorms are locked in Fort Lewis. But you go and you just knock on every door in a dorm, and you talk to the people who are in there, and you try to encourage them to vote or register to vote if they're not, because that's something that you'll come across quite a bit. And we have door sticky notes that we've just ordered, and they're like large sticky notes that we'll put on the door and leave it for people. I think the website that we'll use to get people to register to vote is called How the Fuck Do I Vote, which is really funny. And I love it, and that will really help. I mean, for some people, I think it will help get some young people really jazzed and encouraged to vote when they see that even Democrats can use cool language. Text messaging is going to be crucial. We have a plan. We have about 177,000 young people, college student aged people that we want to reach out to in the entire state of Colorado. In Durango in particular, we have about 5,000 to 6,000 young college-age people that we want to reach out to from text messaging. And the first wave of text messaging will be making sure that these students know that they can change their address, their voting address, get their mail forwarded, make sure they know the whole plan and how to vote. Because that's something that we see a lot, is that these young folks don't even realize or don't even know how to vote. And so that's something that this texting can help with, is kind of encourage them to find ways to vote, and figure out things. We do have a unique issue at Fort Lewis, where a lot of our Alaska Native students cannot register to vote here. So we always tell people who are going up on campus or talking to young folks that if they are Alaska Native, don't have them change their registration, because they'll lose a significant amount of funding for education. Engaging social media. It's one thing to have social media. It's another thing to know how to use social media. And I'll tell you, I'm not a big expert on that. And so my goal is to find people on campus who are really good at that, and use them to really have engaging social media, so people are interested in what we're doing. Tabling on campus, that's going to be a big one, because people will have free stuff, particularly beer koozies, which will be a big hit, I think. And we'll have food, which always brings in young people too. I think tabling is good because we can have candidates join, local candidates particularly join us, so that they can talk to young people about their views on climate legislation, social legislation, whatever is interesting the young people. I already talked about voter registration, but we will do some voter registration. I know that New Era, Colorado is doing quite a bit of voter registration. And so we don't want to do too much, but I want to make sure that we're doing what we can when it comes to that. Potential activities, voter registration drives tailored to college schedules. Workshops and seminars on policy issues, possibly involving local legislators. So I've been having small conversations with Paul DeBell at the college, who is in the political science department. I think he's chair, maybe he's not chair anymore, I don't remember. But he is very interested in working with this project. My guess is that a lot of it would have to be, if we were doing something, we'd have to invite the other side as well. But that's okay, because we know from all data that the other side doesn't really know how to attract young people. So if they do show up, it's just making more of a case for us. And encouragement of student-led political discussion forums. So that's something that I am really trying to work on, is get involved with the political science department there to get students to run like discussion forums or forums with maybe Katie Stewart, who's our candidate for HD 59, or Vivian Smotherman, our candidate for SD6, or even Matt Salka, our county commissioner candidate, or current local electeds. Would be really wonderful, because I think I've always had this vision of having students have the ability to just sit with local electeds or candidates and be able to, what young people use is the term roast, and not really like be mean to the local elected, but just be like, hey, this is my issue, what are you going to do to fix it? Because I feel like so often that's not happening. Young people aren't feeling like they're included or listened to. And I think that if local electeds and candidates can show up and say, I am here, let me explain how the process works, because so much of it is that, these young folks have ambitious ideas, but they don't understand how political process works. And so they need to be a part of that conversation to understand why things are slow going, why things are slow these are the particular stakeholders that will help us. We have campus clubs. We do have environmental clubs on campus focused on sustainability, wildlife conservation, other environmental issues. And they are likely to be passionate about the campaign's climate change agenda. Political science clubs collaborate with the clubs that focus on political activism, debate, or civic engagement. These clubs often have members who are politically aware and motivated to participate in electoral processes. Our academic allies, political science professors, I mentioned Paul DeBell, identify professors who are known for their active involvement in political matters, community engagement, or environmental issues. They can encourage students to participate and may even integrate campaign activities with their coursework. Environmental studies faculty. Faculty members from environmental science departments can be crucial in advocating for the campaign's focus on climate policy. I think most professors would probably stay out of the partisanship of this, but what they can do is mention that there is a campaign who's focusing highly on climate change and our climate change initiatives. And I think that will be, I think that is a good way to go, since the professors, of course, can't really take a partisan side on this. All right, and then this is one of the important parts. How can you help us? If you're interested in knocking on doors, student doors, I'm going to integrate with La Plata Dems to make sure that this, that we're knocking separately on student dorms. That would be wonderful. You can join us in the fun dorm storms. I've never participated in one, but all the stories I've heard, I guess 2008 was like a big year for them in Obama's campaign. That was kind of the start. And I've heard that they were really fun. Send text messages. Those are really easy and they're fun. You can get some nasty text back, but it's you just ignore those. Create or host an event on campus to engage young people in the political process. Talk to young folks and table on campus. My ideal vision of that is, one younger person at the table at all times with someone from a different generation, really showing unity and the ability to engage in meaningful conversation with people who are from different generations. I think it can occasionally be a turnoff for some young folks to see a Democrat booth, and then just people from a generation that doesn't represent them at the booth. And I think it's important that we show that we are the Big Ten party. We have people from all generations and all backgrounds in our party. And finally, I just am wondering if anyone has any questions or wants to ask about how we can effectively engage in conversation with young folks. I'm more than happy to answer some questions. I don't know how to stop. Oh, I do.
Hey, Harrison, are texts going to be automated through CDP? Have you bought one of the texting programs? In which case, you only need one person to really set up the text. It's not a multi-volunteer event.
Yeah, it's not really a multi-volunteer event. Especially because we have, it just takes like you just click every few seconds or, every second. So it's not really like a big volunteer event. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. I didn't think about that. So maybe texting is not something that you can help us with.
Which is too bad, because everybody loves to do it, but realistically, it just doesn't make sense. One person like Beverly Ellis can send off 14,000 in 20 minutes. So that's enough.
Right. Okay. If anyone on the call right now is like wondering how they can effectively have conversations with young folks in their life, I'm more than happy to try to answer those questions. I know there's a lot of contentious topics this election. And one of the ones that I come across the most talking to young folks is is Gaza, Palestine, and Israel, and it's a difficult conversation, but one that needs to be had sometimes. And um, I've tried to engage in multiple conversations with young folks about it, and it's been semi-effective. So if anyone has questions about that, I'd love to answer.
Well, I've told people that we're painted into a corner with Gaza and Israel. It's not a good choice either way, but it's definitely not a good choice the other way. So we're going to go forward with the Democrats, and we're just, who knows what it'll explode into with the Republican administration. So
Absolutely.
that's my theory. Is it painted into a corner? I don't even know. Do young people even relate to that? Old persons who paints their floors? Yeah, it just shows you how old people don't really connect. What is an image you use?
Well, I think the number one most important thing is to just sit there, listen to their concerns, and not get angry first. It's really easy to get upset and be like, "What the heck? You really want Donald Trump over this?" And those are. It's easy to fall into that anger, and I encourage you not to, because that just turns people off even more. Listen first, and then have meaningful conversation about why you might disagree, or why you do agree, and why you're still voting for Democrats. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm. My name is Sam Foster. I'm a retired forestry scientist and faculty member. On the whole environmental aspect, Harrison, I've spoken to thousands of people over the years, from politicians in DC to, school age kids. And the thing that I think resonates with people, and especially here in this part of Colorado, you might just start off by asking them, by the way, have you noticed all the dead and dying trees when you drive over Wolf Creek Pass or up to Silverton? Have you noticed the streams are dewatering earlier in the summer? That's really happening. So if have you noticed wildfire intensity has increased? All of these things are a direct impact of climate change. And in your lifetime, they have played out. And then once you've got them engaged, because invariably, if you start talking, I've found if you start talking about climate change just straight out, oftentimes people's eyes glass over. They don't maybe understand the science, whatever. But if you get them engaged by saying, "Oh yeah, I drove up to Silverton last week or over to Uray, and golly, there are dead trees everywhere. Ah, that's bark beetles caused by climate change. It's an indirect effect of longer warm seasons." Anyway, then you've got them, and you can start talking about, well, yeah, the science is very clear on this. We've known it for 40 or 50 years now that this is likely to play out. Stormier seasons, more hurricanes, and so on. So anyway, that's my way of engaging people on climate change, and it works.
I think you make a very good point there too, is that the one of the best ways to engage in any conversation with people is to start with, yeah, well, imagery is one of the things, is like, how do you make that person imagine, the realities of the situation, and connect it to their everyday life. And that's especially important with the young people, because we're young. We were all young at one point, and we we lived in our own fantasy worlds, and we didn't care about everything else that happened. So when you can start to make, direct direct impacts and direct correlations between your everyday life and everyday issues. That's one of the biggest things. And I even saw that in my own city council race, is that, you know, young people who I was trying to engage, who didn't show up like I needed them to, just couldn't understand how important local elections are to their everyday life. And so that was something I needed to work on too, is how can I make those direct connections to voters. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and trying to imagine myself sitting at a table up at the university. I spent a good portion of my career at universities teaching and advising and all that stuff. And I just imagine that, and, you know, trying to attract folks in their, you know, late teens and early 20s. I'm thinking, nah, that's not a good picture. You know, at least have the majority of folks at the table with you younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's really important, and that's a mistake I think Democrats have made for a while, and it's not to any detriment of ourselves. It's just that we have, you know, we have an older base when it comes to our volunteers, and people are willing to do stuff, and so it's really what this project is, you know, two parts. It's trying to build the next generation of leaders and political activists and engage voters. Super easy. So excited I took it on.
Thank you.
I'm just reading Marcia's question. Policy, like people like me tend to start to get into the policy wonk details. Sometimes I feel when talking to young people that it is a turnoff. That's why isn't this fixed now? Any ideas on how to respond? Yeah. Well, first, and Marcia, I love you. Don't start in the policy right away with young folks. I mean, I think policy is what drives them, but you have to make personal connections with them first. And it's, why isn't this, I mean, that's pretty normal. Why isn't this fixed now? You know, that's all young people have is politicians continuously telling them like, oh, I'm working on it. And this is it. I'll be doing it. I'm working on it. It's like, okay, we're sick of hearing that. When are you going to do something? And I think first is kind of what our friend was saying, is making that personal connection, trying to connect the work that you're doing to their everyday life, and then not getting into like the nitty-gritty policy stuff, because we just, young folks, I mean, I'm different. I'm that like probably 3% that actually cares about any of that stuff. But being able to have that conversation with young folks and connecting personally is the most important thing. And you are personal, Marcia. So I have a hard time believing that it's always a turnoff with young folks. I love you.
Maybe find out what issues are important to them. What are the biggest issues important to you? And then when you find out what they are, you can.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that's one of our biggest strategies when we go door to door, is having that conversation with folks, and we have a conversation and we ask them what issues are most important to them. And when they can answer that question, we can start having conversations, you know, from there. And a lot of times young folks will say, at least in Durango, what I've noticed is that, you know, housing and cost of living is one of the biggest things that young people bring up. And those are pretty connected. And so it's important to, especially in Marcia's case, you know, she has a lot more history and policy she can actually turn to and say, this is what I have done to help housing and cost of living in La Plata County. And I think that's a good way to connect it.
The other part
Any
of
other
that,
questions? Go ahead.
the other part of that is why is it so slow? Well, we have to elect people in positions to have a majority so we can vote on these things. And if we're always kicking the can down the road or not gaining a majority, that's why things don't work. So I think the Schoolhouse Rock thing needs to come back out, how a bill
I
is made.
agree. Well, a lot of frustration with young people is just how long it takes for things to get done. You know, it was, for how many years were we talking about $15 minimum wage? You know, young folks were, and not even young folks, but everyone was. A lot of people were, and it's like we now, you know, now people are like, oh yeah, we can do 15 minimum wage, but that's not even enough now. So it's like it is a continuous frustration of like, why are we keep getting kicked down the road in terms of the issues that are important to us. I'm certain that the issues of first jobs, will the US economy be strong enough for jobs to be available? Will we ever be able to buy a house? Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I think young folks don't really think about the economy as that. I think economy is kind of a word that we just like don't really care about because we're like, we don't know anything different than a bad economy. Young people don't. We don't know anything different than not being able to survive and living paycheck to paycheck. And so it's important that we are. I mean, that's something I don't really hear very often. And you know, Kamala saying it, you know, talking about first-time home buyers and the things she wants to do was really exciting to me. There is still worry in my brain though about like, will that even be enough? Especially in Durango, will I ever be able to afford a home in Durango? Um, and I think in Colorado we have a lot of unique situations that associate with that. Any other questions?
I'd say that that's a culture issue, buying a house, because in Europe, so many countries they rent. It's the majority of people rent. So it's not a big thing, you know, oh, the American dream. And I wonder what young people think today about the American dream. When they hear it, do they just go, that's not my reality. Dick,
Yeah.
you have a question?
Yeah, I was thinking about food insecurity, which is something I did some writing about some years ago. One of the things that shocked me when I did that was something like half of college students in the country are food insecure, and I know that's a very substantial number at the fort. And the question is, how do you respond to that? What have we done? But partly it's an income issue.
Yeah.
That and that goes back to the housing is the same situation, but people don't make enough. I mean, the federal minimum wage is an embarrassment, but those are issues that are very, very hard, and I don't perceive that as a Democrat I have a particular answer to provide.
Yeah. Well, I mean, leave it to Dick White to ask a difficult question. How do I mean, I don't even know how I would approach that. I mean, I think compassion's the first thing you'd start with when you're talking to a young person, like, you know, who's in a situation of food insecurity. And I think that was one of, you know, on a personal level, in the last, you know, 14 months, I think I've utilized, you know, the Durango Food Bank and the La Plata Family Center more than I have, you know, until when I was a child, when my parents were using food banks to feed us. And it was for me, it was really embarrassing. I felt embarrassed going. I don't know why, but I think that's a lot of times young people feel that way. And I think it's just making sure that young people know that they're not alone in that this is a serious issue and that there are avenues for support. What Democrats can do exactly, I don't really know. And I don't know how we'd include that into like a conversation about policy. But one of the most effective things for me was when I went to these food banks and I even said, I was like, I am a bit embarrassed. They just looked at me and said, this is completely normal, and people your age all the time come and have that. Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, connecting it with child tax credits, that's really smart. Which is like number one. I mean, that doesn't totally help with, college students who are food insecure, but that does help childhood hunger. And I think it's a good way to make a connection with the same issue. I don't know. Do you have an answer or helpful? Dick, do you?
Uh, and it's I think the first thing is to realize how widespread an issue it is, and it's got to do ultimately with the extreme uh, state of income inequality in this country, and it's been exacerbated by Trump when he was president. And he passed those tax cuts, and every evidence is that he wants to do it. He wants to double down on that if he gets elected. And and it's very clear. The Biden Harris administration and Kamala's own statements now indicate she wants to make sure that any tax cut primarily goes to low and middle income people, and that she'd like to see high income people paying for more of that.
Yeah.
Which that's it. I remember, I'm a fossil. There's no point in putting me at a table up at the college, unless you want me to talk about climate change, which I could do ad infinitum, which might not be a good thing either. But the issue here is to say, look, it really matters who gets elected. And it also matters at the state and local level. The state has done a lot in terms of trying to make money available to communities to develop affordable housing. Marcia would be able to speak more directly to the details of that. But that's frankly our Democratic legislature that's managed to get that done.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
so I think we've got some, I think there are ways to talk about things, but it's a challenge. And of course, I go to things, events up at the college, lifelong learning in particular, which I'll be doing a couple of days this week. But it's a gray-haired crowd. You don't see a lot of young people, even though the topics are wonderful, and you will see more. If it's a professor, if some professor has, like Paul DeBell, A is speaking, or B has saying, oh yeah, you can get extra credit in the course if you go to X, then my own experience is that that's a good incentive. It's like food at a table.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons why food works.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. It is. One of the things I think this was last year or so, second semester at Fort Lewis, Restore the Balance and an organization on campus did a wonderful joint event with students, and I don't know, maybe some of you were there, but it was such a great conversation because I was having conversations with older folks and younger folks, and it just felt like that was like one of the most effective things I've seen happen on campus in terms of engaging people in civic conversation. But it's hard because that was more nonpartisan, and I think unfortunately we have to be having these partisan conversations with young folks. We have to be having those conversations of like, there is one party who is fighting for you. The other one is absolutely not. And we are lucky because we have evidence of it, but well, I know it's part of what Dick said. The event got well attended because all the students, it was a requirement of the classes. And I think Paul was teaching like multiple of those classes. And so all the students had to show up. I think Restore the Balance did do a good job of getting engagement from other people, but it's never really been an issue to get, people of older generations to show up to these events. It's always difficult to get younger people to show up. That's why connecting with Paul is good, because I can be like, can you give extra credit if people show up to this event? Oh yeah, that's true. Free pizza for old folks too. And they love that too. Oh, that's right. It was a political engagement project. It was a really good event. I really enjoyed it. I'd be interested to see more of those happening. I feel like every day I wake up, we get closer and closer to the election. I have less time to plan something. But I think we have to have these conversations throughout, even on off years.
Dick is asking, what fraction of students are food insecure?
I know it is a substantial number, and I know a lot of students at Fort Lewis, utilize the Grubhub at the college, which is a wonderful program that has any and all of the food that you could think of that you might need, and it's wonderful. All right. Any other questions, comments? Well, thank you all. If you want to help at all or do anything, I'm going to drop my email for this particular job and my phone number in the comments. You can go ahead and write it down.
And if you copy and paste from the chat, there's a whole, I put in all our coming events and do something. So that's my new thing, do something that Michelle Obama told us. So there's all these things you can do, and there's action items at the very end. The Rock the Vote is coming up this Friday, and that's going to be at the amphitheater at Fort Lewis. Young people, and hosted by, gosh, what does it say? Student Housing something, and the PEP, the PEP, Political Engagement Project. So that might be a good time. I'm going to go to it, even though I'm old, and see if I can get the members of the PEP to say what's going on with that community by conversations thing. We can maybe get it going again.
Yeah.
Marcia said 30 to 40% are food insecure. I know for me, when we closed Purple Cliffs and I found out there was over a dozen Fort Lewis students living up there, I just thought, what is going on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a continuous issue at Fort Lewis. There's, even students living in their cars, and I've met some of them and had conversations with them. And it's a sad time to live in a world where, you can't even get an education and not be housing secure or food secure.
I mean, when your tuition is provided, it's just the irony of, but you're on your own for everything else, which is probably way more than tuition. So we went to cut and paste the form, and let's get this on the DEM website about the opportunity. Way at the top of the chat is the actual description of the job, and there's a bigger document for sure with a lot of information, but it pays $21 an hour, and they get a phone call, $100 a month cell phone stipend. I mean, it's attractive to do this, and we don't have much time, so we should probably put it on the DEM website for people to share.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any announcements? All right, well, the September 23rd, in 3 weeks, is the Cattlemen's Candidate Forum. I'm looking forward to that. That's at the fairground, and all the candidates will be there. So we really need to get that out. And there's a free concert in the park by Tim Sullivan the day before on September 22nd. So
Yeah. Karen, I do not see that job announcement in the chat.
it's way up at the top.
I looked there. It's not there. At least not in
Okay.
my chat.
let me redo this part. I'll just send it again and see if anyone sees it. You see that? That's part of it. So Harrison, did you happen to make a little note of Dick White? Anyone else here want that information? And Harrison can send the full document
Yeah.
out.
I'll send
Yeah,
the
it's-
full document to
I
you,
see it
Dick.
now, but
Cool.
I did not see it further up in the chat.
Okay, it was the first thing I put on back at 12.
But I looked at when you said that and it wasn't there.
All righty.
That's all I can say.
And you know,
Um,
Carolyn, do you have her email? You know what? Gwen has it. So everybody who registered for this call, Gwen can send what you tell him to out through that. That'd be
Wonderful.
great.
Perfect.
Right.
And do you have any announcements?
We have amazing stuff for sale this weekend at the Roosevelt's dinner, just saying. In case you haven't bought your tickets yet, it is time to buy them. No, really, I mean that. I have to send in a complete head count tomorrow night. I just put the link in the chat again. We would love to have you there. We have a couple of people coming in from Colorado Springs to speak about Project 2025. We've got all of our candidates there, including Adam Frisch and Vivian Smotherman and Katie Stewart and Matt Salka. Unfortunately, Ms. Porter Norton will not be able to attend, but everybody else will be there, and we're looking forward. It's going to be a fun evening. I think it's going to be good. So we'd love to see you on Saturday up at the Roosevelt's. Any questions for me? The only other thing I would say is, it's great that Harrison is asking for people to help canvass on campus. We need canvassing everywhere. And I would love it if more people who have any walking mobility at all can help us do the canvassing. We are going to be desperate this fall. We have our really, really big weekend of canvassing coming up in mid-October with lit drops for every candidate and the vote all ballot and explanation of all of the ballot measures. But we will start walking this coming weekend if we can get a couple of details straightened out with Colorado Democratic Party, right, Harrison? So we're working on that. One would think it would be easy after 20 years of doing this, but it's getting weirder every year. So I really look forward to seeing you out all walking as much as possible, because it is going to be critical to get that info out. Thank you.
And I'll show you the lit drop. This is the card. It has all the the beyond La Plata County and beyond, and then on the other side is all local candidates. So look for that. And that's what we're going to be handing out, so that all the information is there. Each candidate's website is on there, and a little bit of blurb about each one. And it is great design. So thank you, Anne. And thank you, everybody, for showing up. That's
Actually, I have to say, Harrison is the one who designed that. I'm going to have to step off the call to pick up another call. Excuse me. I'll see you guys later. Thank you.
There's the volunteer QR code. So with your email, you could send that out. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Ready, because a lot of times people register here and don't. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harrison.
Of course.
Excellent.
Thank you.